everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Revenue Roundtable. Every episode, as you know, is an opportunity to learn from experts who are making a real impact in our healthcare industry. And today's discussion is no exception. I'm your host, Lori Jeffries, and I'm so glad you're joining us. Today, we're discussing an important topic that's not talked about often, and that is retaining the front door of healthcare by reducing turnover in service access. I want to welcome two outstanding leaders from WakeMed Health and Hospitals, Joe Palumbo and Renna McLamb. Thank you both for joining me. Joe Palumbo is the Executive Director of Front-End Operations of Revenue Cycle. He has dedicated his career to the front end of Revenue Cycle for over 30 years between New York, New Jersey, Maryland, and now North Carolina. He has served as past president for the North Carolina Association of Healthcare Access Management and is currently serving as the communications chair. Renna is the director of patient access, and she has over 10 years experience in healthcare, all within front-end operations of the revenue cycle. After joining the WakeMed team in 2018 as the manager of patient access, Renna was promoted to director in December of 2021. She is a graduate of East Carolina University with a bachelor's degree in health services management. So welcome to you both. I'm so happy to have you for such an important topic, and I'm excited to learn from each of you today. So we're going to jump right in and get started. Renna, I'm going to give a little bit of a background, and then I'm going to jump right into some of the things that you started and saw in the beginning. From what you shared with me early on, WakeMed reduced turnover from 30% to 14% in 1 year. So that in itself was a topic that I was like, I need to hear more about that. So the topic's going to be revenue cycle and patient experience strategy conversation, right? Because stable access teams directly impact insurance capture, accuracy, authorizations, patient satisfaction, WakeMed's branding, the healthcare facilities branding, and downstream reimbursement. So we know that this topic affects everything related to what we do in healthcare industry. So I'm so happy to be able to learn from you, Renna. So in opening our discussion, before we really talk about the solutions, can you share what the environment looked like when turnover was above this 30%? What operational or cultural impacts were you seeing?
It was very tough. Our morale was very low, not only at our our representative level, but I would also say at our leadership level as well. Our leaders didn't feel that they had the support that they needed to be able to not only retain employees, but onboard employees as well. So we we're really finding just a lot of unhappiness, inadequate staffing. So we had a lot of holes, open positions. You have leaders who are trying to fill these holes with new hires, but then also the staffing, so the day-to-day operation as well. So they're also having to step into staffing. It was a very tough environment, and our morale was very low.
You know, it's interesting because healthcare has changed so fast in less than 5 years.
Absolutely.
And it has impacted this topic at the top of the list, in my opinion, because people are changing careers quicker than you can talk about it, right?
Absolutely.
And this topic is so important. So what made your organization decide that the workforce stabilization needed to become a strategic priority versus simply that HR challenge that we always talk about?
Yeah, we were coming off of the heels of COVID, where we saw a lot of turnover, especially in our EDs. And we had a new VP to the organization. And so when he came in, we kind of sat down and, we had the conversation, what's your magic wand? What do you need? And I said to him, I really want to help support my leaders. And I feel that they are stretched so thin, they're not able to do everything that they want to do, that I know that they're capable of doing. And so we kind of sat down and came up with a strategic plan in how we were going to be able to um, get these leaders the support. And part of these conversations, we said, let's look at turnover. Our turnover is very high. And I think for years, we kind of just attributed that to being an entry level position, front door. Um, Post COVID really challenged us to look at that a little bit different. We were really struggling in our EDs. It was very hard to get someone to want to work in an ED, especially being one of ours being a level one trauma center, a children's emergency department. You're exposed to so many things. Um, a gap that we very quickly found was you could go work in one of our physician practices and get paid the very exact same pay rate. And you got inclement weather off, you got holidays off, you got weekends off. So if you have to pick between the two, who wants to work in an ED when you can have all those perks? So we just kind of started seeing, okay, there are opportunities for us to help this role be more marketable and in turn help our retention, and then in return to that, help our morale in the department. So we kind of advised a plan, and we figured out we would really benefit from focusing on our retention.
That, that's so important when you talk about that, the transparency and the time that we give our staff. It goes back to what you put in is what you get out. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and at the end of the day, we can talk about all the things of optimization, strategic initiatives, and all of those things, but they're not 100% game changers. It's the people, right?
Yes.
And not only that, it's the people that's facing our patients, which makes it so important, especially when, to be front end, like
Mhm.
revenue cycle, right? We always talk about denials and we talk about the back end and everything, but we really need to talk about the importance of what service access plays in this picture and how we go about making change. So, when you first evaluated the root causes behind the turnover, what surprised you the most? Like, what operational workflows or workplace frustrations did you find were contributing most to burnout or the disengagement that you saw?
So a lot we kept hearing was pay. Like I said, in the example of, I could go to a physician practice. We noticed that we were losing when we kind of started asking exit interviews, where are you going? Why are you leaving? We found, oh, I can go to a primary care office and I can make the exact same, and my exposure is lower. My schedule is very set, and I get holidays and weekends off, and we knew that that was, the more we heard it, okay, this is definitely a trend. We found, kind of like I spoke to earlier, of the leaders want to do these. They want to help. They want to succeed. We didn't we were not providing them with all the tools to be successful. So not only our leaders, but our staff as well, especially when we talked about open positions and staffing and struggles in our EDs. And that's really where we struggled the most, was in our emergency departments. Um, Across the system at the time, we had 6 emergency departments that we were trying to staff, and yes, it was very tough. When you talk about a 30% turnover rate, we were losing time every time we had to hire someone, and then we talk about 6 weeks of training. So we had a lot of aha moments of just little things that we had overlooked over the years of, again, attributing to, this is an entry level position, people are going to leave. Yes, we know people are going to leave in that, but how can we retain those that don't want to leave, that, could succeed in this role, could become our team lead, could become our supervisor, and really grow and help them build a career in their role.
When you talk about that, some of the things I think about are, the years just the three of us have in healthcare revenue cycle and being in the leadership roles of healthcare, whether it's revenue cycle, finance, whatever that might be. It's high stress, high pace, and the people that choose the career, they love the career.
Mhm.
They do. And so I think that when you talk about the things that you talk about of wanting the people to be cared for, because you know what you love about it. And if you can just portray that to others and let them see that transparency of what you're trying to do to help, it makes a difference, right? It's that relationship building and the thing you're listening to them and you're hearing what they have to say. And that takes time, right? It does take time out of our busy day, but again, what you put in is what you get out, right?
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So many healthcare organizations, they focus heavily on recruitment, right? We've seen that over the past years. And I feel like recruitment was very different pre-COVID than it is now. And how did your team shift toward retention, and what initiatives did you put in place in order to encourage more lasting employment, that longevity in a role that is so tumultuous at times, being in the ED? Did scheduling flexibility, training, onboarding, all of these things, or career development play a role in the improvements that you achieved?
Absolutely. I actually was part of a group where we argued the importance of a higher pay rate for our ED PARs than our PARs that are working in clinics. So we put the data in front of our senior leaders and we said, here's our turnover, here's the money that we're spending in these areas because they're leaving to go to a practice with a more set schedule. This is money that we could save given the environment that we're asking them to work in and the exposure and the schedule and the pace. This is a much more complex role than some of the other areas. And we were you know, very lucky that our senior leaders saw the return on investment, and we did, and that was one of the first things that we did. So we were able to get an increase in pay for our ED PARs, and that kind of helped them see, okay, they're very serious about this. They're very engaged in wanting to retain us, and they care about us and our livelihood and what is important. So that was kind of our first step. And then we looked kind of to our leaders and we said, okay, how can we help you all when you are hiring or when you are doing these interviews? And so we kind of came up with an idea of let's have standardized kind of interview questions that help lead, and let's focus more on behaviors. We felt that behaviors were more important to us. We can teach systems, we can teach insurance websites, we can train with scripting, but the behaviors for us were more important. At WakeMed, we have, our culture is Wake Way. And so we really were very picky about finding candidates that fit into our Wake Way and our behavior. So we kind of shifted our questions to be behavioral based questions and to seek out candidates that kind of match what our culture is. And that really helped our supervisors and our managers when they're interviewing to keywords and to recognize things and say, okay, we think this person is a good fit for our team, that they are going to come in and bring more to the team than come in and take away from our team. And that's really, what we want. We engaged our team leads, we engaged team members as well in the interview process. And we really saw, once we had that more standardization and the shift in our questions, that our candidates, we had quality candidates, and we then we kind of shift to, okay, we've perfected our interview process or what we feel that we're more comfortable with. Now let's look at our onboarding process. Are we, do we have a standard of how we onboard our team members? Meaning, if you start in the Raleigh ED or you start one of our Health Plexus EDs, your training is very similar. The materials, the classes that you're going to, the tests that you take, the competency tests that we have our employees take when they finish their training to ensure that they are not only hearing, but they're also comprehending what we're sharing with them. And, and if they're not, that we can give them those extra resources or that extra time that they may need, because we know front end changes just when you think you have it figured out. They're
You
going to
don't.
throw us a curveball, and we're like, okay, we got to go back to the drawing board here. We got to change this tip sheet. We got to change our education. And that is a constant to this day. We are still perfecting and reviewing our training materials, our classes, to ensure that we are providing our new hires with the tools to be successful. And that's really what we wanted. A real powerful message that we heard was in one of our org development classes. They said that their onboarding process really determines if they're going to make it to that 1 year mark or not. And so for us, we said, okay, we need to perfect our onboarding process. We want our new hires to feel welcome. We want them to feel supported. We want them to feel that they're getting the training that they need and that they are a part of a team, not just a job. So like I said, we did so many little things over time, checklists, so that the supervisors or whoever was onboarding them didn't have to remember everything up here. They had a checklist that they could go through, and they had this one-on-one time with the preceptor to say, okay, this is my buddy for the next 4 to 6 weeks. If I have questions, here's who I go with, to kind of get more insight to what they were doing, or questions that they may have.
I have
And
so
once
much.
these,
I have so much to add here. That is
yes,
so enlightening to hear from what you're saying, and that well, number one, congratulations on proving your point from a financial perspective, and your leadership, hearing you and seeing your input about finances and how that will make a difference if you change the pay on certain levels, right? So that's
mm-hmm,
number one. That's very difficult to do in the challenges that we face in healthcare. Congratulations on that. Number two, when I was hearing you talk about the interview questions, and let's talk about the behavior-based questions and getting to know these people. One of the things that have always been important to me, and I've worked with Joe over the years, and I know his style, and I know that it's about when you bring these candidates to the table, they're nervous,
yep,
right? We're sitting at the table, we have a job, right?
mm-hmm,
And they're sitting there before us, and we know that we need somebody great, and I need somebody yesterday, and I hope that they bring it, right? But at the end of the day, you almost have to step back when they get to the table and just be the human neighbor, the human friend, the human counterpart supporter that you are, and say, look, we're here to just have a conversation. We want to get to know you. We want you to get to know us. And we're going to ask some questions, but we're going to give you an opportunity to ask us questions. And we just want you to kind of relax and kind of get in the feel of the conversation, because I feel like if they see and hear you saying that human touch right out of the gates, and I know that's what you were getting at when you were talking about the behavior-based questions, right? You
mm-hmm,
want it to be about, I can teach somebody how to look up an insurance in the system,
yep,
right? And the challenges that change every single day in the tip sheets, all of these things are supportive materials.
mm-hmm,
And, I didn't even like when I had to laugh internally when you talked about the pace in which things change. Insurance companies keeping us on our toes, right? Keeping us
yes,
challenged. And there's just so many options out there for our patients. And the first thing that they see is service access as part of that branding. And
mm-hmm,
so if you start with the human approach in those interview questions and it pays off for you, they're going to show that same face to the patients in the clinic, right? So
yep.
I found joy in listening to you when you were saying those things, and I'm happy for you in that because it has seemed to pay off for you. And so, can you tell me, how did you involve? Because when you talk about the team leads and buddying up and them having support with someone to answer their questions, how did you involve the frontline staff in identifying the problems, shaping these solutions, and what role Did recognition, coaching, employee feedback loops plan in reducing this turnover?
Absolutely. A lot of this was driven, we heard their morale was low. We heard them complaining of the open positions and the overtime they're having to pick up. And so we really kind of sat down and we're breaking it off little bit by little bit of, okay, what could we do different here? Hearing their feedback. And a lot of times, they said, I haven't gotten feedback. And we said, you're right. You haven't. We should be sitting down with you more than just at your yearly evaluation or, when something doesn't go right. So we said, okay, here is an opportunity for us to have a kind of consistent one-on-one time with your leader. And so now all of our areas get a one-on-one with either their supervisor or their manager every single month. And that time is not just time to go over audit scores and productivity. That time is also connection. So sit down and talk about what's working in your role, what's not working in your role. How are things outside of work? Is there things that we can do to support you? What is your career? What do you want to do? Is what you're doing what you want to do? Or, are you looking for growth? Is there ways that we can help support you? So we were kind of hearing relationships, support. And we shifted that of just being um a supervisor and a par sitting down. It was really kind of two people sitting down, talking, going over things. And they still do this to this day, every single month. Yes, they go over their audits and they go over, opportunities and feedback. But we found that they wanted that. They wanted to hear their feedback. They wanted to know what they were doing right and what they were doing wrong. And I say very often to the teams, I mean, even to me, is if I'm doing something wrong, I want to know about it because I want to fix it. I want to be able to do better. And so we were doing our teams a disservice by not giving them that opportunity. And so I pride, we have a wonderful team. Our leaders have relationships with their employees. It's not just a leader and employee relationship. It's a close. They know what's going on outside of the work. They help support each other. There's things going on. We need to move schedules around, or you need to go to a different location because you have something going on. We encourage them to come to us before leaving because we want to find a solution to help retain our team members that we value so much and that help our organization run. Help keep our front door open with a smiling face is just invaluable.
Yeah, it is invaluable. And, Ren, it's funny because at the end of the day, I do not believe that people wake up every morning saying, let me see what I can do wrong today. They don't.
Exactly. They don't.
They get up and they want to do the very best that they can. And
They
if
really do.
nobody is talking to them about what the definition of the best that they can is, then
Absolutely.
frustration, well, it's several things, right? Frustration can set in, or fear.
Yep.
Right?
Mhm.
The fear monger that I've had to talk about with staff over the years is a real thing, because if people come to the table with fear, their brain shuts down. They can't think clearly. There's one thing to be
They
nervous.
disengage.
Yeah, they disengage totally, and they can't help it.
Yeah.
There's one thing to be nervous. Everybody in a new role or learning something new is nervous, but
Mhm.
to be fearful is dangerous, right? So
Right.
you coming to the table with that human approach and to give them that caring feeling about, their families and what's going on with them and the flexibility and how can I help you today? It's just imperative. And it does not surprise me that some of the things that you've done to make these changes have resulted in such a great difference in your turnover. Congratulations on that. So, in the service access environments, teams often deal with high patient emotion. I kind of saved that to later in the conversation, right? But that is, it really is one of the
Yes.
first things that can hit them, right? every day is high patient emotion. Our patients are not here to really talk to us as something that was a gift to them. They are sick. They don't feel good. There might be financial issues going on. It's very high stress for them. And the volume and the pressure, all of these things, going in that pot together. How did you help staff feel supported while still maintaining operational performance expectations when you're talking about dealing with high patient emotion and volume?
I will say we are very blessed with the organizational development department here at WakeMed, and they do lots of courses and training that help prepare our team members for these situations where they may have to de-escalate or they may need to call in reinforcement. But a big emphasis over the past couple of years, just organizational wide, was workplace violence prevention. And so we've been able to take a lot of those tools and help prepare our staff um, when they find themselves in a day that's a little more stressful than a typical day. Let's say we have more traumas than usual, or they're exposed to a situation that can be difficult. So we have debrief teams that do a great job of it's not a debrief to find fault in anything that may have happened in that encounter, but it's to support the team emotionally for what they have just seen. So we have really kind of shifted into caring about that emotional level of the employee and respecting you may need to take time away for the day. You may need to take the rest of the day off because of what you have been exposed to. So we kind of, a lot of those tools, we have used resources that WakeMed offers us to help prepare our teams with de-escalation training or org development courses that remind us that we're all humans and that we all have feelings and emotions and that nothing is ever personal when a patient gets frustrated or gets short with you. They're not at their best. We never know what someone is carrying when they walk by us in the hallway, and to remind we see each other as humans and how can we support, that's the culture really at WakeMed, from the top down. Everybody kind of, we walk around and we carry that our patients and our families will always come first. And we help provide our staff with the resources to make sure that our patients and our families can continue to come first.
I love to hear you talk about the de-escalation process and the resources that you provide your team, because I think that things like that not only help them in the environment of their position, but they can help them outside their career.
Yeah,
I mean, you think
absolutely.
about those training courses,
Yeah.
back in the day of Joe and I, de-escalation was never talked about.
No.
That is a recent topic just over the past, less than 10 years or less than
Hmm.
5 years even. And I think that those are topics that really help someone both in their career and outside their career. So I love to hear you talk about the resources that you're providing your staff, because I think it helps them both professionally and emotionally.
Hmm.
And it can help them also they might have stressful things going on. It's not just about the patient being there
Hmm.
and having stressful things going on. The employees have stressful things going on at home, and these things that you're talking about can help them in those things as well, which again
Absolutely.
helps them wake up the next day wanting to do the best that they can do in all the things that they have to face. So I
Yes.
love to hear about that, right?
Hmm.
Joe, I'm not leaving you out. So I know you've been sitting there very quietly, but I'm not going to leave you out. But I do want to hear from you, Joe, and I'd love to hear more about beyond lowering the turnover rate. What additional operational improvements did you begin to see as Renna worked hard to reduce this turnover rate in just a year?
Well, that is the defining piece, right? When you have leaders like Renna, as you've heard over the last so many minutes, explaining what work is being done on the front line to make an impact, I think that's how you get to where you want to be, right? Having her and or other leaders manage the supervisors and the managers and direct them in the direction that we need, right? our frontline team members, we are educating every day on having them focus on the metrics that matter to the organization, right? Denial reduction, especially on the front line between our registration and eligibility type of errors. Having them now, okay, we've got the right people in place. Now let's get them trained up so they are focusing appropriately on what's going to matter to the organization in the end. And we have seen over the course of the last couple of years since I've arrived, and I'm sure Renna has seen it in the time that she's been with the organization. We are really focusing on the right things from a revenue cycle education perspective, working with that education team to make sure that the classes are designed to say, hey, if you see this edit or error or this coverage, this is what the expectation is. So having greater operational improvements around reducing the volume in our work queues. Our team is phenomenal with how they manage our work queues on the front end. And it's so great when you report out to leadership to say, wow, they've really got it together. They know that when these high dollar claims come in, they've got to work hard within 24, 48 hours to get those claim edits out the door. We know that the paradigm has shifted, right? Front end is what is driving that clean claim rate. And they know it. We preach that day in and day out to our team members. The leaders know it, and they preach it right down to the new staff members coming in the door, and also count on our other team members to know that. Point of service collections is another operational improvement that our management team can help our front end team members. Scripting, making sure they're using it, making sure that when they get into situations that are going to be rough, that they role model and practice it so that way they're more confident the next time. That you talked about, reference these questions, interview questions, behavioral questions. We want to know, hey, did you ask someone for money in the past? Because that's a critical piece of that role. The other great thing is how we are being asked to be at the table. Front end team members from the frontline employee to the management team are being asked to be part of projects, not only revenue cycle projects, mid-cycle, back end, but clinical team members are asking for our involvement because they know we play such a critical role in the entire patient experience. So it's really awesome to see, and it keeps on growing.
Oh, yes. And a couple of things that you mentioned there when you talked about scripting. I love to hear that, because I think that consistency in messaging, because the patient's gonna probably show back up again. And with scripting, you have that consistency. And patients, they don't live in this industry like we do. And it's complicated enough with us being in it, right? It's complicated enough. And so to have that scripting is a gift, right? It really is a gift. And it helps both the employee that you are developing, and it helps our patient for a consistency's sake in messaging to where it lessens their confusion, right? I think that's just wonderful to hear about. And I love all the things that you mentioned that have improved over time, especially from a service access perspective, and being experts in the work queues and how they're managed and the conversations that you have. But at the end of the day, one of the things that you touched on that warmed my heart too is that we can't do this job without the staff. They're
right.
the experts in what they see every day.
100%.
They are totally the experts in what we see every day. And to have them at the table and us listen to their voice is everything. And that's what I've heard from both you and Renna today. So if you could leave healthcare leaders, Joe, if you could leave healthcare leaders listening today, and Renna, I want to hear from you on this as well, but if you could leave healthcare leaders listening today with one key takeaway about building stable, engaged service access teams, what would that be?
It has to be you. You as the leader. You as the leader have to hold yourself accountable to making sure you're the role model for the team that you lead. It really does. That employee, when they come into your new environment, are not going to they're either going to get a bad experience or a great experience based on how you lead them. So I think you have to make sure, when I say that, you being the role model, you have to make sure that you're always following through on your commitments, right? Being timely with your communication, especially to them, right? If they have a concern and you don't get back to them in a timely manner, you start to lose the trust, right? That you're trying to earn so eagerly with them. Involving the team members, right? Making sure that they have a stake in the game regarding point of service collections, decreasing denials, improving wait times even. They may have a great idea, and we want to make sure we're listening to them. And that's another critical thing, right? As a leader, you want to make sure you're always providing, you are listening and you're letting them know that you are. So I think overall, just making sure that team members are kept up to date on any changes that may impact their workflow. You got to celebrate the wins and that in special moments in their lives, right? Yes, at the end of the day, it is a business that we're running, but you're sort of developing a family mentality because you're caring about your employees. And that's how I think over the years I've learned that's what matters the most. So
Yes. Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. Renna, what would you like to say in addition to what Joe added to that question?
I agree with him completely, and I think relationships are very important. I don't. I couldn't do it if I didn't feel a connection with each and every one of them. So I really try to make an effort to build a relationship with everyone on the team. I don't only communicate with the managers. I have one-on-one skip levels with the supervisors and help keep them growing in their careers. And when we're rounding, really listening to every employee and getting to know them on a personal level, build a connection with them. I think that's very important. It's something that means a lot to me. And so I'm kind of one of those people of, treat people how you want to be treated. I think it's very important. And so, yeah, I kind of try to give back to all the leaders that have given to me over the years and have been so supportive of me in my career. And I take little nuggets from them and grow and continue to do that. And I think relationships and being genuine, caring about your team and not as employees, but just as people.
Yeah. Renna, thank you for that. You are, you have a great career ahead of you. And I love all that you have shared about leadership and how it is important to listen. And one of the things that I get from that is something that is very passionate to me. And that is, it doesn't matter the level of the name of your position or what role you play in that position. Staff can come and talk to anybody they need to talk to. And
Yep.
I think that, listening to the staff and having that open communication like you're doing at WakeMed is such a gift. And I congratulate you both on job well done, right? I think that this is a topic that should be talked about more. I mean, we need to talk more about service access and all of the great strategic initiatives that you're doing to make that difference to our patients and the branding to your healthcare facility. So I want you to know that there's resource materials out there on revcosolutions.com. If I can be of any assistance to you, I am happy to do that. And, those are free. So, that costs nothing for you to go out there and use those resources and download those to benefit you. So thank you both for taking the time to share your experience and journey with me today. I think one of the biggest takeaways from this discussion is that reducing turnover is not just about a number. It's not about the staffing number at all. In reality, it's about building a culture where people feel supported, engaged, and connected to the mission of what we're here for, which is patient care. Your success in reducing turnover, it's an incredible accomplishment. Renna, I'm proud of you and what you've accomplished in just a year. And I know many healthcare leaders listening will walk away with practical ideas they can bring back to their own organizations. So we truly appreciate your transparency, your leadership insights, and the impact your teams are making every single day. So congratulations to you both. And I'm so happy that you took the time to be with me today.
thank you
Absolutely.
so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you for
Thank you.
having me.
Thank you. Have a blessed day.
You as
You too.
well.